Ever feel like your solos just aren't landing, but you can't figure out why? You might be making the same mistakes I've been hearing over and over again. I've been reviewing solo submissions from intermediate guitar players this week, and the same painful issues keep showing up. In today's lesson, I'm going to roast 3 of those solos, break down what's going wrong, and more importantly, show you how you can fix it, so you can make real progress without falling into the same old traps. Let's jump in. A quick note, some folks have asked to hear the full solos before I critique them. To keep this video short and algorithm friendly, I left those out here. But if you want to hear all 3 solos without my commentary, there's a link in the description below. I've sent a particular track to all 3 of the soloists today. This is going to be a B major to A major track. So the neat thing about this track, as we'll get into, is you could play some minor pentatonic over it, you can play major pentatonic over it, and also you can get into the modes as well, the Mixolydian mode if you'd like. That's gonna be a B to an A track. Let's go ahead and jump in. All right, so the first soloist's name is Chad. Let's give him a listen. Okay, so right away, I gotta give him some credit here. He took quite a bit of time before he started. Why is that good? Well, it allows you to kind of set up the energy of the track, pay attention, dial into the rhythm, really give it some space so that when you come in, it sounds a little bit more special. One thing I'll critique him right away for is he's actually kind of starting on the lower strings. I find that it's really hard to cut through a band when you have keys and guitar and bass and drums like this. My recommendation would be make sure you start in the middle of the neck, so maybe on the D and the G strings. And if you want to use those bigger strings, the lower notes, just use them very sparingly. So again, he's come back quite a bit to those lower strings, and I think that it's really hard to get any kind of motion or any clarity out of that. It just sounds too low. Okay, cool. This is something that happens to so many guitarists. When you hear a drum pattern that is playing, like Jeff Sipe is playing on this track, and he's playing 16th notes, so it's going like 1 E and a 2 E and a da, and it's on the hi-hats. What's happening and what happens to many people is that we end up playing short. So the guitar by nature is a very staccato instrument. The notes are short. If you accentuate that shortness over a track like this, it's just going to make you sound really short. Also, short can be cool, but it has to be rhythmically short, meaning you really have to start and stop the notes on the 16th note groove. My challenge to you, Chad, would be try and play more lyrically. More slides between the notes. The guitar is amazing. It can sound very vocal-like. But we really need to implement those slides. One thing I haven't heard you do yet is slides from just a half step below the scale. That is amazingly good sounding, safe, and you can do it any place on the scale. So Chad here has chosen that minor pentatonic box 1 right at the 7th fret. He could add in a lot of flavor by just adding in a half step slide from any of the notes below the scale. All right, let's keep checking Chad out. Okay, also important. Sorry to cut you off, Chad. So you're going in for some bends. There's this rule that I have in my lessons, and there are 0 bends to nowhere. What do I mean by that? Well, sometimes I hear guitar players and they go and they just kind of bend ambiguously. So for you, you're on the D note at the 7th fret of the G, right? Now, here's the interesting thing. This could work potentially. But what I'm hearing is you're not quite bending that note with intention. What I mean by that is, if If you want to bend it, make sure you bend it up a half step, or bend and release. Like there's this kind of like curling of the third. And make sure that you do it with intention and that it doesn't just come out randomly. Zero bends to nowhere is just such an important concept. And you guys can probably hear dat dat do do dum. Because he's not playing as connected as he needs to, it ends up sounding kind of choppy. So, right, so there's that kind of line that he played. What I would recommend, Chad, is if you could just spend a few moments a day in your practice, and you might at first do this away from a backing track, figure out how do you make it so that every single note just flows into the next one, right? The word is legato. And part of that is just making sure that the preceding note always just moves smoothly without a pause, right? And it's tough at first, but if you just focus and get your ear focused on that, it will get a lot better. Because the musical ideas that you are playing are pretty good. That's basically the line that you're playing. And I think if the notes were just more connected, it would really work. Cool. I like that you got into some fast notes at the end there. Realize that if you're gonna play fast, that's totally cool, and I highly recommend it. Especially, I love the idea that you kind of peaked at the end there. That was the climax of your solo. That really worked, and then you kind of landed. The thing that I will say is make sure that when you are playing fast, those are still divisions of the beat, like quarters, eighth notes, triplets, and sixteenths. Right, so there's no real great sounding guitar licks that aren't some kind of in the pocket of the groove, and you can follow the drums. What I would challenge you to do is do some improv practice with specific rhythms, with quarters, eighths, triplets, and sixteenths. All right, everybody, let's give it up for Chad for being willing to share his guitar playing with us. It takes a lot of courage, and I really appreciate him doing it. Very nice work, Chad, and let's move on. And now for a quick word from our sponsor. My Inner Circle coaching program just opened up a very limited number of spots this month. If you're looking to accelerate your playing with personalized feedback and direct coaching, click that link in the description below to apply. Okay, so our second soloist did not send his name along with his playing, but that's okay. If you know him or if you are him, please leave your name down in the comments below. Let's go ahead. We'll jump into your guitar playing over this B to A track. Okay, so right away, I enjoy what you're going for here. There's a lot of ambiance in your playing. What I mean by that is you got a lot of reverb and delay dialed in, and maybe either the delay or you also have a chorus on it with some modulation going. I think that it's a bit too much. It is subtracting from your guitar sound, and it's also removing any kind of potential to be really in the groove. Now, let me be clear. If you look behind me, I have tons of effects pedals, right? I absolutely love them. But really dialing them in and then dialing that level back so that you're able to more effectively, still have the pureness of the guitar sound, I think that's really important. And for me right away, this is just a little bit too much delay, reverb. Okay, cool. So I gotta say, this is neat to hear this solo versus Chad's solo. In Chad's solo, Chad chose to only play the B minor pentatonic scale. Now that works because B to A is kind of a bluesier sounding progression. It's in all kinds of jam band stuff and bluesy stuff. But our soloist number 2 here, he actually is playing more of the B major pentatonic. I think a very happy and important place to be is that spot where you're kind of blending the two. This is the perfect progression to kind of mix the two together. If you haven't seen my video on the 3-fret rule, check out that lesson because it's very important. It will help you blend that major pentatonic and the minor pentatonic together. Nice bends into the minor pentatonic, very good. Okay, so some cool triad stuff going on here. Really, you're navigating the fretboard really well. I tell people this often, so you're playing this triad where you're kind of barring the index across. I would avoid that. You're gonna get a lot more connectivity if you don't do the bar. But I really like that you went for that idea. I love the idea of these like kind of triadic things. You can get a lot of really neat sounds out of that. Okay, I want to bring this up because this is important and you don't, it's hard to teach people online about this because you don't always see their feet or legs. A little bit of the times where I've heard you kind of go off the rails a little bit in this solo, where it kind of is not 100% in the groove and rhythmic, I noticed that your left leg starts to beat around kind of as if it's playing what you're playing on the guitar. This is the enemy. You absolutely have to stop your other limbs from playing what you're playing on the guitar. Your foot, if it's tapping or if your leg is tapping, all it should ever tap is the quarter note and the groove. That is it. That is it all the time. Only. Really nice in-tune bends. So, you know, here's one thought I have for you. You're playing a lot of great stuff, but one of the things that I'm noticing about your playing, you're not necessarily pursuing any of the ideas. What do I mean by that? Well, you're not creating a theme out of anything that you're playing. So meaning like, you're having the tendency to abandon every single idea almost immediately once you play it. And my challenge to you would be you can do certain exercises in your practice where you literally force yourself to repeat a phrase and repeat a phrase and repeat a phrase. What that starts to do is it starts to allow you to start playing more themes in your guitar playing rather than kind of playing a bunch of unrelated ideas. The playing's very good, but you could sound a whole lot better if you just connect your ideas. Okay, so just like Chad, here's the thing. Your reverb and delay is covering this up a bit, but watch out for that shortiness. I would say that most intermediate guitar players need to practice playing all the notes long and connected and as legato as possible before they get into playing too much shortness. The short stuff is just very tricky, and a lot of times it just sounds out of the groove, out of the pocket. Woo, zero bends to nowhere. Okay, so I think that what you were trying to do is you were trying to bend up to G sharp there. Yeah, and so again, this is part of the fact that your guitar has too many effects on it. You can't quite hear the in-tune-ness. I like the idea of it because it's a great bend in this key, F sharp up to G sharp. So if you just clean up your signal a little bit, I think you'll be able to focus on the bends, play them more in tune, more easily. So you're doing that thing where you're getting a little caught. I mean, look, it sounds really good, but you're getting a little caught by doing too many bars here, right? Of course, like that is the 16th fret, and so if you're playing in B major pentatonic, you can play the index finger like straight across all of those. But I promise you, you'll have more clarity and connection and ability to move around if you don't do those bar-y things. They just don't really work. Also, very important, the end. Be thinking about the end before it comes. I know it's a short track, and I know that, you know, it's not it comes out of the blue in some ways. If you listen to the band, you'll hear things kind of wrapping up. One thing that I hear people do, and you did this, and it's partially because of the modulation on your guitar, and it's partially because of what you were doing, do not vibrato the root, the one like this. What you did was you took the root and you bent it out of tune before you vibrato it. That note has to be perfectly in tune. And so when you vibrato notes, you really want to make sure you're not bending them out of tune before you start vibratoing. Right? So, and also your vibrato needs to come back to neutral every single time. Go ahead and comment your name below, please. I'm sorry that it didn't come through when you sent this over, but thank you so much for jamming. Let's give props for soloist number 2 for jamming with us today. Let me know in the comments how you thought he played. I thought he sounded pretty dang good. You know, I'm being a teacher. I'm challenging him. I'm trying to make him sound better, right? I'm gonna praise you, but I'm also gonna challenge you. All right, let's jump into the third soloist. Alrighty, our third soloist today is Scott from Japan. Let's go ahead and check him out. So right away, this is something that is so incredibly common in intermediate guitar players. Scott is playing really nice stuff, except he has a lot of delay, just like soloist number 2. He has a lot of delay on his guitar, so he's actually not hearing the fact that his notes are not as connected as they need to be. I'm hearing a lot of... Everything has this, like, the guitar by nature, it has this very loud onset of the note, and then it dies right away. So you really need to play... How do we make those notes as connected as possible rather than short and choppy? And honestly, I would challenge soloist 2 and Scott here to try to do another one of these solos, no delay or reverb at all. I mean, it's just a much more honest kind of situation. Okay, so Scott's doing cool stuff, but he's really trying to kind of share his arpeggio knowledge, meaning like, oh, we're playing B to A, right? So that means if I play a B major arpeggio down to a A major arpeggio, yeah, this is gonna sound good. It's gonna sound like you're in the, you know, same tonality, but it doesn't sound melodic or that interesting to me. I would much rather hear somebody play in the pentatonic scale. Sounds much more soulful and interesting, and then use very much like little tastes and flavors from the triads. I think a good analogy is this, right? If we think about this B major chord as a red crayon, and I'm just coloring on a box, and say this A major chord as a blue crayon. Okay, when you play the triad, all you're doing is you're coming back to that red box and you're coloring the exact same crayon over it. And then same thing for the blue crayon for the A chord. So meaning like there's no interest or variety. Why? Because it's the exact same notes that are happening in the chord. What's more interesting? Playing melodically in the scale, passing through tones that aren't in the chord. That sounds way cooler to me. Zero bends to nowhere. Where do we bend that note? That is the 2 of the B major pentatonic scale. It's C sharp. It needs to either go a half step for the blues or a whole step. There are 0 bends to nowhere. Know that you're bending 100% to another note in the scale. That is always the answer. I gotta say though, some really nice melodies. Like Scott, you're sounding good melodically. Okay, so this has kind of been happening the whole time, and this is the most common theme that I hear in all of intermediate guitarists, and that is you're just not connected into the groove. For some reason, you know, the word rhythm turned into rhythm guitar, and you're only thinking about rhythm when you're playing chords, but rhythm is happening at all times, right? It's the the length, when you start, when you end your note, it's like so incredibly important. My challenge to you, Scott, is to spend more time. I have an exercise that's on my YouTube channel. It's in my Creative Solo System course. I recommend it to everyone. It's called Consistent Rhythms. And what it is you're practicing improvising within certain rhythm contexts, meaning like only quarter notes, eighth notes. This kind of very directed rhythm work is so incredibly important, and it will help you a lot. That was a great Vince. I'm gonna come back to this because I think that this would be really good for you. Turn off the delay, man. I love delay. I want to hear you play on this, focused in on the rhythm, and also I think you'll be able to hear your vibrato and your bends. They're so integral to sounding great on the guitar, and I don't hear them dialed in. I think part of the reason is that delay is distracting you. Really great tone. Yeah, really great tone. So many good things going on here, Scott. Thank you so much for submitting this. You know, if I were you, I would really dial in, take the delay off, practice without it, and try and start really feeling rhythmically what's going on. Quarters, eighths, triplets, and sixteenths. Those are the rhythms that happen the most in music, right? And if you can dial those in and start to get your sounds more connected, then you can start to shorten those notes and make them more groovy, throwing in those triads. More melodic stuff from scales. Anyway, I thought you sounded great. I'm being super critical because that's my job. Thanks for submitting. Awesome. Now that you've seen some of the most common soloing mistakes, watch this video next in order to learn 5 simple, powerful exercises that'll make your practice more musical, more focused, and way less noodly.